This is a good one. I get this question a lot. I'm sure you do too. What are some ideas for an 18X-Ray to stay fit from OSUT to selection? Quote unquote, go and fit and then get back in shape is a great starting point, but I'm trying to game an actual plan or some ideas to get some extra reps. Hope you and Jon can give some insight. Thanks for everything you both are doing for the community. Of course, man. Go ahead, Jon.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Appreciate the question. We've had some guys recently. They just got to brag. A couple of them passed or just got through SFPC. So pretty fresh on like what their experience was. They came in with a pretty high level of fitness, and all of them kind of lost a little bit of their fitness level, right? And I'm sure you can agree, if you come in with a high level of fitness, you can expect to lose a little bit. If you come with a very low level of fitness, you can expect to gain a little bit. I personally went in there with a pretty slow run time, and I got my run time faster. So depending on where you're currently at, will kind of dictate what that experience looks like for you. With it, basic isn't too bad. Really kind of where it starts to suck in regards to losing a lot of performance is OSUT. You're going to be primarily focused on infantry tactics. You're going to be spending time out in the woods. You're going to be eating MREs, not sleeping, a lot of those things, which is going to affect your recovery. It's going to affect your nutrition and subsequently your performance. So understand that it's going to be a suboptimal environment for you to even make progress or maintain those gains that you had, but that still means that you still want to take advantage of the time you do have now. In regards to specificity with a plan while you're there, use what you have. A lot of guys that I've talked to, maybe in their bay, they have kettlebells or dumbbells. These guys, in their case, had kettlebells kind of in their back room. So they were doing a lot of kettlebell work. Also, this is a good time to work on your calisthenics, work on your push-ups, your pull-ups, and try to boost those numbers. You're not going to be able to get heavy enough really loads to train in that optimal rep range for strength 1 to 5 and get good stimulus from the strength component. So I would use that time to focus on getting those push-ups up, getting those pull-ups up, kind of understanding that you might lose a little bit of strength in that time, but you can regain it after that time. But if you come back out with solid push-ups, solid pull-ups, your planks are really good, your numbers with that are looking solid, then you're going to be in a good spot once you get to Airborne. I know I saw your notes. You have a really, really good point that I have not thought of. So I want to hear your answer, Kevin.
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned it earlier. Pretty much everybody who has ever gone to OSUT with the intention of going the 18X-Ray route has felt exactly the same thing that you're feeling. And with that, lots of people end up still being successful at selection. So although it is not the optimal, say, for example, day one of OSUT, the timeline, I'm not exactly sure what it is these days, but say day one of OSUT, say day one of basic is 8 months out from selection. A lot of people think that they're going to OSUT and they're like, if I go to OSUT at this fitness level, like this is going to be it. I'm not going to get any more fit from here on out. And that's not the case. It's going to fluctuate. You're going to go, like he said, once you start OSUT, there's going to be a lot less actual structured PT that you guys go do. Even the structured PT, they try to break it into ability groups, but it's still not perfect, but it's enough to kind of like maintain at least. Once you get into OSUT, you're a little bit more on your own. You're going to be a little bit more, you're going to have to be a little bit more creative and figure some things out. That being said, even if you don't really do anything all that much at OSUT, I'm not recommending this. Once you get done with OSUT, you start Airborne school, you go to Airborne school, then you have however many months between Airborne and SOPC. SOPC, you want to go, I always say, go into SOPC as if it was day one of selection because you might gain a little bit of fitness at SOPC. The value of SOPC is getting used to actually being at McCall. Now that it's back at McCall, at least I think it is.
Yeah.
And also learning how to land nav and kind of learning what the structure, even though SOPC doesn't look that much like selection, it's at least a similar environment and you get more sleep, you get more food, it's less stressful, but at the same time, you're doing a lot of selection-like things at SOPC. But I would say instead of not doing anything during OSUT, which I said you could, I still wouldn't recommend that. Worst case scenario, you most likely will have kettlebells. You most likely will have maybe some dumbbells, something along those lines. Some bays I have heard even have like more of a prison gym where you can use actual like dumbbells, barbells, and things like that. I wouldn't count on that. I would say the more comfortable you are looking like a goober, the better. So what does that mean? Doing a bunch of pogo hops. One of the biggest things that gets guys after OSUT, going into Airborne, going into Pre-SOPC, is the sudden ramp up of running mileage. So if you're not someone that has a big time running background, usually someone with a big running background that has a lot, like really high mileage going into basic, when they bounce back into a high, they just have the capacity to ramp their mileage up faster afterwards than someone who doesn't. So being able to maintain the adaptations of the impact component of running by doing pogo hops, believe it or not, running in place. I've even heard of guys running laps around the inside of their bay. Yeah, you're going to look like an absolute goober. But guess what? You are further enhancing your potential preparedness when you get out of there, and also decreasing your injury risk when you start getting into these higher mileages that you're probably going to get just launched into in Pre-SOPC. Additionally, some mistakes that probably a lot of people make that I wouldn't suggest making. A lot of people will think, okay, impact, that means jumping, that means plyometrics, that means high rep plyometrics. And no, that is not necessarily the case. I mentioned pogo hops. Pogo hops are fine to do for high reps. You can do pogo hops if you work your way up to it. Pogo hops, literally, for those who don't know, you straighten your legs out and you're just jumping up off your toes. And you're using your arms to kind of get up, but you're not, unless you're a freak of nature, you're not jumping all that high. And if you are a freak of nature, you're probably going to be used to jumping high and landing anyway. So aside from that, if you're doing squat jumps, or if you're doing broad jumps, or if you're doing skips you can do for a little higher reps. But when you think plyometrics, don't think I want to do these for cardio. And burpees is another favorite of a lot of people too. Nothing wrong with some burpees, but I've heard of guys doing like hundreds and hundreds of burpees every single day in addition to their SF prep. And it's just totally arbitrary, and it's going to fatigue you. Burpees are a really good exercise to induce fatigue. They're a very lazy trainer exercise that's like, I can't think of anything, but I want to make you feel like you worked hard, and I want to make you feel tired. So let's just do burpees. And you watch most people do burpees, and they're super ugly. They bang people's shoulders up. They do these half-ass jumps. You're basically doing a little bit more than nothing, but not in a very beneficial way. So all that to say, run in place. You can run in place. You know, if you do it a few times per day, you don't have to run in place for 30 minutes straight, 45 minutes straight. But if you can build a habit of a few days a week, running in place or running around the inside of your bay, doing some pogo hops. If you have a kettlebell, doing some kettlebell swings, you can do some high rep kettlebell swings, especially if it's a lighter kettlebell. Kettlebells aren't going to make you great at running, but they're going to at least keep you used to using your, like developing your aerobic system and your anaerobic system. So you can also do more advanced kettlebell stuff. You can do clean snatches if you're proficient with them, but I would keep it very simple. And like John said, definitely work on your calisthenics. Might as well just become a push-up and calisthenic monster. You can work on pacing your push-ups. A lot of people mess up their push-up pacing, especially if you're used to the old push-ups where you can use momentum to kind of do a lot more reps on the non-chest release or hand release push-ups. The hand release push-ups is totally different. There's an art to it. You got to slow down. A lot of people will just do like a shit ton of push-ups to start out, and then they burn out. If you think about a hand release push-up, the only time you're resting is when your chest is on the floor. So if you get this really good 1 rep per 1.5 seconds, 1.75 seconds, and you just maintain that, you could do a rep every 2 seconds and you'd get 60. You would max it out. So a little bit of buffer room. Say you're doing a set of 30. If you get that set done in 45, maybe 50 seconds or so, you don't have to count every single rep. Like how long did that rep take? But a set of 30 in 45 seconds, that's 1 rep every second and a half. And I'm not even that good at math. I'm pretty sure that's right. So little things like that. And then also another huge one I wanted to touch on is once you get done with OSUT, you're going to have to do some airborne shuffle runs and things like that. But like those are not very strenuous or anything like that. You will see people fall out, which is kind of funny, but you'll have, at least on some days of airborne school, some days are going to be ridiculous marathon days, and trying to get training in, even though I did it, I still wouldn't recommend it. Like I wasn't really getting much out of those training sessions when we would just work 14, 15, 16 hours a day and I would train. But you're going to have other days that they're more manageable, and you should be able to get some sessions in. Go to the gym, build your strength back up, but most importantly, start building that mileage up. You can do mostly easy runs. Like I said, you can do some strides. take advantage of the weekends as well. A lot of people, including me, would go out and party on weekends, and that would not be necessarily what I recommend. You're going to have weekends off. If you go sometime with a 4-day holiday, usually they do 4-day weekends or at least 3-day weekends, you can get some really good, solid long runs and or rucks in on the weekend days and really take advantage of that time. So I think that, of course, this is a valid concern, but it is something that everyone's faced, and you just got to make do with what you got and make the best of the situation. And just know that, lots of X-rays have been getting selected for years and years and years and decades, and it is not optimal, but it is still, honestly, most X-rays have a more optimal prep than most other people, because literally they are just given all the tools. It's not the best programming. It's not perfect, but it is way better than being in a line unit and you have a crazy schedule, or your command doesn't support you and they make you do CQ or staff duty all the time. They make you go to the field, whatever it may be. So X-rays got it made, and there's a reason that X-rays have the highest selection rate of the people that actually go to selection. The overall selection rate, don't let that fool you. But like, if you actually make it to selection, you have a really good chance, because you're going to be at an advantage compared to some of the other guys. So anything else to add on that one?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to send you to selection unless you're physically ready. At the end of SOPC right now, they're doing basically a gate week. You're doing a 12-mile ruck. You're doing all of your gated events. And if you do not pass it, you don't go to selection. So you just get rolled into the next SOPC class. So
interesting.
Yeah, don't stress right now the like losing maybe a little bit of strength or a little bit of running capacity inside of OSUT. You're not going to lose so much that it's going to be huge. The thing that I wanted to stress that Kevin brought up, and I saw in the notes, I was like, damn, that's good, I'm stealing that, is the pogo hops at basic. Do those, because a lot of guys, you'll see them, they're kind of pent up during OSUT, then they get out of OSUT, they get to Airborne, or they get to, they finally get to brag and get some time to train, and they ramp up the mileage super quickly and develop injuries from it. So pogo hops to develop that resiliency in the lower legs, and you're like, if you are someone that comes from a background of shin splints or plantar fasciitis, things like that, that can really limit it. So you can ramp up a little bit faster. But overall, man, like, I came from kind of the prior service side of the house, and I always tell guys that going 18X is your best chance to get selected. Kevin brought it up, but a lot of the other guys that you'll see at selection that are coming from prior service, they just did a really imperfect prep. Maybe they spent a month out at JRTC down in Louisiana or NTC, and they fought through that entire thing, and they're still there, ready to perform. So with anything in the military, you're going to have to fight through a lot of challenges. So instead of dwelling on how difficult it is to make progress, or that you lose 5-10 seconds off your run time, just commit to the process and understand that it is the best chance to get selected.
Couldn't have said it better myself.